I haven't been this impressed by an election in a long time. Why? It has nothing to do with what you're hearing everywhere else. Okay? We saw major indications that the game is changing. Now, not huge, but we have been stuck in a toxic two-party system. And of course, they're battling for control right now, and that's okay. Again, we need to know how and who is going to govern. But what we saw is that the races were not controlled by either Democrats or Republicans turning out big numbers of their base. That's not what this was about. This was a declaration of independence, not ENCE, DENTS. People like you, free agents, independent voters, declaring their collective intentions. Free agent, open mind, open heart, not tied to team or tribe, willing to listen. You are about the nation, not mere nationalism. You are the fastest growing part of the electorate, those who do not identify as Democrats or Republicans. You are voting on people and policies. People count. Candidates count. It's not all just groupthink. Not with you. And that is a great sign. That's why the polls struggle to catch one reason that polls are spotty. And look, when you're talking about data, they'll always find a reason that it was okay. Well, the margins were good. You know, we were pretty close, pretty close. Look at how big the margins of error are. We're going to talk about that tonight. But it's harder to capture where people are when you don't know which people to talk to. And they're looking for Democrats and Republicans. They don't understand the vitality in the middle, in the dead center, the people who don't want to be part of that. So what did we see in this group? They went on policy. They went out for reproductive rights. They went out to make sure that people who denied the results of the last election were not rewarded for that. Perfidy with power. We see the number of independents increasing from the last election. Good sign. We see this even adjusting for a short-term decrease that we saw in the last few months. Why to go down if it's growing? Because you got a lot of people who want to vote in primaries. And in many of the states, you have to be the member of a party. Otherwise, you can't vote in the primary. Note, more proof. We need to get parties out of the primaries. Remember, the Constitution doesn't make it okay for the parties to run it, not federal or even state laws. It's the parties and those in power from those parties that keep this culture in place. But things are changing. Ranked choice, open primary movements, they're spreading in states. We saw more on the ballot. We saw it in the camo wave as well. Veterans voting, running in big numbers, and not your average party-first faux patriots. They vote their mind and their measure of the man or woman running by and large. And as candidates, they seem to be more about loyalty to Constitution than they are about fealty to a party. Not always, and they too can be seduced by party power, but most don't start there. That's a good change. We also see the change in the young. Why'd they break so hard for Democrats? Like 2/3 of them. Why? Reproductive rights. We thought that that wasn't going to matter to anybody. Wrong. Wanting leaders to respect democracy. We thought that wasn't that big a deal. Wrong. And also, you know what else? They're not as susceptible to the economic fear factor. They're not as easily scared as the rest of us with mortgage and kid cost concerns. Now, you're not really hearing any of what I just said on a lot of the other outlets. Why? Because the horse race is what matters. I mean, frankly, that's what you want to watch, right? And it does matter. It matters, right? For good and bad reasons. We do need to figure out who's in control. But also, your growing influence as outsiders does not suit those profiting from the game and covering the game. You're a distraction. But to me, you're the complete attraction to coming back on TV and getting back in this business. Because I know in my bones, this is the answer to us getting to a better place. We have to get out of this frozen two-party game. We have to. Now, there are distractions that are out there, and we must deal with them, okay? But I dealt with what matters most first, which is you, voters, making the difference, and not on the basis of party, but priority to you and looking at the people that were running. Love it. Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of NewsNation's fact-driven coverage.